which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a motion to suspend the rules.
Roll call first.
I'm sorry, roll call? Who's taking the roll call? I'm not the secretary yet.
Mr. Ault. Present. Mr. Beistel.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Here.
Mrs. Kaufman.
Here.
Mrs. Love.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Polakowski.
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Here.
Mr. Betts. Here. Need a motion to suspend the rules and also to slide citizens' comments down, farther down, right before collective bargaining agreement.
Motion.
Second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 9-0. So, temporary board secretary.
It's recommended that the board appoint Mr. William Salem as substitute board secretary for the April 4th, 2012 special meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Kaufman, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rhodes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Could we have roll call? I'm sorry, roll call vote?
Mr. Ault. Yes. Mr. Beistel.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mrs. Love.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Mr. Betts.
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Collective bargaining agreement.
Before we talk about the collective bargaining agreement, I'm going to excuse myself for a moment and get some lights on here.
Keep us in the dark. The teachers accepted today, I'm assuming. Did they? Yeah, I'm assuming.
I think the most expeditious way to go through the contract so that the board has a very good idea of what we're doing as well as the public. I'm going to read a letter that I received from Bruce Campbell, who was our chief negotiator. Dear President, members of the board, and Superintendent Molnar, this is to recommend ratification of the tentative agreement between the Southmoreland Education Association and the Southmoreland School District. The tentative agreement was signed by the parties' representatives on March 28, 2012. This tentative agreement comes 16 months after the parties started bargaining in December of 2010. The SEA membership has ratified the tentative agreement. Ratification of the tentative agreement by the board will result in a collective bargaining settlement between the parties that will continue until June 30th, 2015. Even with this settlement, the parties will have to start negotiations for a successor contract no later than January 10th, 2015, less than 3 years from now. The tentative agreement is the fact finder's recommended settlement of last year with 1 year added. Thus, the settlement recommended is that recommended by a neutral arbitrator fact finder appointed by the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board. The added year increases the health insurance contribution by the teachers in the district and increases the salary schedule in the first 8 steps and the top step by a dollar amount less than the third year recommendation of the fact finder. The following is a summary of the fact finder's recommended settlement with a year added. Term: 4 years from July 1st, 2011 through June 30th, 2015. There's nothing to be retroactive. These specific starting and ending dates are consistent with the budget year for the district and are the provisions of the applicable Pennsylvania bargaining laws, Act 195 of 1970 and Act 88 of 2015. He says 2015, that's incorrect. Anyway, the expired contract did not include specific starting and ending dates. Wages. There is a wage and step freeze for the first year. This wage and step freeze, that means that over the 4-year term, teachers will only move 3 steps instead of 4. The Southmoreland Education Association's desire to have step movement during the term of the contract was the biggest sticking point in bargaining. The only additions to the salary schedule are designed to increase teacher rates for starting salary in the first 8 steps, which are now low compared to other Westmoreland County school districts. Supplementals. Supplementals are frozen for the term of the contract. Health insurance, teacher premium contribution. During the last contract that expired June 30, 2011, the premium contribution by the teachers was increased to $50, $75, and $100 a month during the contract term for all but individual coverage. The premium contribution for individual coverage was $20, $30, and then $40 a month during the last contract. The fact finder did not recommend an increase. However, in the fourth tentative agreement, the health insurance contribution is increased 25% from $100 a month to $125 a month for all but individual coverage. Most teachers are under this coverage, and the contribution for individual coverage is also increased 25% from $40 to $50 a month. And he notes here that the Mount Pleasant contribution for all teachers, regardless of coverage, does not reach $45 a month until the third year of its recent settlement. Health insurance plan options. The Westmoreland County Health Insurance Consortium provides a number of health insurance plan options. Of the option, the least expensive to a district is Plan B. This plan has higher copays and deductibles, but lower premiums, and could therefore be of interest to younger and healthier teachers. No county school district has any teachers or support staff in the Plan B option. Plan G is the next least expensive for a school district. Southmoreland and 2 other county school districts are the only districts in Plan G for their teachers. The plan with the most county school districts is Plan A, which is 4.3% more expensive than Plan G. There are other plans which are used by the remaining school districts, and those plans are all more expensive than Plan G. The tentative agreement includes the fact finder's recommendation that Southmoreland teachers during open enrollment be able to opt for Plan B, which is the least expensive plan for the district. In consideration, those employees would have no premium contribution. As of the last contract, Southmoreland became the only Westmoreland County school district that does not include a guarantee of health insurance paid for by the school district after retirement in the labor contract, no matter when the teacher retires. Management rights. The fact finder recommended a management rights provision which is part of the tentative agreement. A management rights provision is a basic provision that has not been included in any collective bargaining settlement here to date. This provision is broadly drafted, and its inclusion in the contract can be expected to reduce disagreements with the Southmoreland Education Association in the future. It includes the right to promulgate rules and regulations. In terms of language changes, the SEA agreed to 3 language changes in the contract, 2 of which were in the provisions about scheduling, and the third under the individualized education programs. So in summary, there's a wage and step freeze in the first year and limited additions to the salary scale in the next 3 years, which are designed to help attract and retain the best qualified teachers. Beyond that, there are a series of concessions to the proposals of the district, and no other changes, benefit improvements, or language changes for the SEA. The tentative agreement with the SEA clearly implements the recommendation of Governor Corbett last year that the parties implement a wage and step freeze effective July 1, 2011. The resulting new collective bargaining agreement will enable the district to continue to run a quality public education system that is managed cost effectively and has a relative tax burden among the lowest in Fayette and Westmoreland counties and elsewhere in the Commonwealth. Based on decades of experience in bargaining in the public sector and in representing school districts, I recommend without reservation ratification of the tentative agreement reached by the parties. Sincerely yours, Bruce D. Campbell, Chief Negotiator. So that's a summary of where we are. So we would entertain a motion at this juncture.
Motion?
I'll read the motion here. It's recommended that the board approve the tentative collective bargaining agreement between the Southmoreland School District and the Southmoreland Education Association as presented in the ratification document, a copy of which is to be attached to the official minutes of this meeting.
Motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Miller. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Beistel. Citizens' comment.
Mr. Jan Kiefer.
Hi, good evening. Before you start my 5 minutes, I wanted to say I did appreciate coming here last week for the budget meeting you had for the public, and I had a few really sincere conversations on that night, and it really afforded me a forum to interact other than this podium or on a personal basis, and I really encourage you to develop that for time coming up. Okay, Mike, let it ready, start. Here we go. And this speech really is about Southmoreland and tonight's agenda. It's going to take me a minute to get there, but bear with me. 27% of the Pennsylvania bridges are graded structurally deficient. We have 12,400 outstanding warrants in Westmoreland County that we can't afford to serve. We have cuts in our nursing home funding, and homeless people are living like animals. Adults with disabilities are waiting for lists for essential services. Our environmental protection is so underfunded, understaffed, that our local landfill is daily taking a convoy of tanker trucks from the Marcellus gas industry, and they're left on their honor system as to what's in those trucks and what's going into our landfill. You can sort of see where I'm going with this by now, and there are a lot of social programs that, along with public education, must share the money pie. But hold off, and to be fair here, tax money goes to Afghanistan to build schools, to fix their bridges, to round up their terrorists, to nurse the wounded over there, to feed the hungry. Everything I just listed above, we're doing in Afghanistan, yet with the exception of the environmental part, where the United States leaves no pretense to doing anything but leaving it a wasteland. At least here they're giving us a pretense. This isn't about fracking, though. This is about the school board, and that's where I'm getting to now. So public education has to share this money pie along with all the social programs, and that's fine, except for one big thing is we're spending much more than we take in on the local, state, and federal level. Southmoreland debates indoor air-conditioned batting cages, gives Cadillac contracts, $1,000 a week life retirement for our children, our grandchildren to pick up the tab for, while Southmoreland alone has $50 million in facility debt alone. Public education is the only institution to have the form of a locally elected board. The welfare board, there's no welfare board, there's no prison board, there's no bridge board. And this is a structural flaw I see in our society. We have a school board elections that places members in the position of lobbyists for the education and for school board, and also for lawmakers, which tonight you come in here as advocates for public education, and now you're telling how much funding you're going to put into public education. When Paul Bayor last year stopped the tax hike, I predicted he would be voted out, and was what came to be known as the spouse slate of candidates. I appreciate and respect teachers' skills that they put forth, and I say that with all sincerity. I don't blame teachers for everything, and I don't think it's right to balance the national debt problems or the state debt problems on the backs of the public service employees or teachers, and that's in my view. But one thing that is clear to me is teachers' pay has gone from below average to above average, community-based, in the last 30 years. And why is this? And I feel it's because of the flawed election process that I just referenced. If we don't fix this, public education looks to me as if it's going to go into privatization, and I would like to see a lot of changes in public education. But just in my remaining minute here, I'd just like to address the teachers, since that's why we're here tonight. It just amazes me that we run a $26 million a year budget. We've hired all these teachers. We never had a teacher fired. We never have an evaluation from the students, the ones who would really know which the best teachers are. There's no reason why a kid who's out of high school for 4 years couldn't say, these were the ones that reached me and these were the ones that didn't. We never had a teacher as a whistleblower to come out and say, hey, here's something wrong. They stay behind that fine blue line, which I think a whistleblower could help the whole institution. We never had the confessions of a retired teacher. Everything's always right and there's no controversy. And we never had a teacher protest over curriculum. Maybe it happens in-house, but if that doesn't happen in the community, those of us who are civic-based and not in the educational mindset and not drowning in that mindset can't participate. So from the society's perspective, most people, we've never seen any teacher stand up and say, we're tired of this bubble testing, we're tired of being told what to do, this international curriculum. They just, suck it up and go along, and, we need to break that barrier. So in conclusion, I just heard those lovely figures, and why is it you never give an hourly wage for the teacher in any of these press reports? Why doesn't the press ever ask for that? All those numbers you give us to a guy in the street who cuts trees or mows grass or works in the mill, he wants to know how much do these guys make an hour? How many hours do they work a day? How many hours are they off? That's apples to apples. That brings the community into this school debate. And my last point, and my most important point, is I would like you to show the math solution for filling this retirement package, and please show the work. You know, we're an indebted nation. We're paying 20% of our annual budget to the banks to support our building things. You know, show those numbers. What I've gotten so far here tonight and what I've gotten year in, year out doesn't work. And you know, I'm here not to pick on one aspect of this whole thing. The point is, you know, what are we getting for our money? And there's a large contingent of people that I speak with that feel that public education, like the public health system and most of our American institutions, is a colossal failure. So thanks, and it's good to have the opportunity to interact with the government on the local level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more citizens' comments? Discussion from the board?
Is it Mr. Salem going to give a presentation? Oh, you're not, I thought you were. About the cost of the contract? I can't hear.
Are you asking for a cost of the contract?
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to discuss that before the vote. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Well, okay, again, there's discussion on the motion then. And I would like permission to speak. Clearly, I've been told that I cannot speak once the voting is started, so I want to speak now, so that the general public understands what I'm doing and why I'm doing and how I'm going to vote. You'll have to forgive me, but I get my information about what's going on in the school district from the newspaper. Just as I was severely criticized for responding to the newspaper article about the trip to Harrisburg, I have to do it again because it's the only thing I know. The article that appeared on 3/31/12 says, quote, "One teacher makes top pay." Mr. Salem, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. We have one teacher with her doctorate, and she is the highest paid instructor in the district.
How many other teachers are at top pay?
Define that.
As much as they can make on their pay scale. How many other teachers? Okay, the answer is 43. We have 43 teachers at the top of their pay scale. I can list them, Ken. I have their names, okay? We have 43 teachers at the top of their pay scale. And what the public doesn't understand is there's not one pay scale, there are three. If you have a bachelor's degree, you go from the bottom to the top. If you go a master's degree, bottom to the top, and the doctorate. And we can argue the doctorate thing all we want. If there's anyone making money less than her, she's at the top. If anybody's making money more than her, she's at the bottom. And in statistics, that's called a null, and you throw that out. But anyhow, we won't get into statistics. But the bottom line is I'm looking at the newspaper, and it says one teacher makes top pay. And I have a list. Bill Porter gave us a list of how many teachers were at each step of the pay scale. I have that list. I've had it for years, okay? 43 teachers are at the top pay scale. Not one, 43. Rachel, there's a big difference between those two. I want to tell the public that 48 hours ago, I was handed a finished contract and told that I can look at it and I will vote on it within 2 days. And this is a contract that affects this district until the years 2015 and very possibly a lot longer than that. I'm sure that most of you get the Tribune Review, and you probably saw the headlines in the paper, Menneson School District in dire straits, they may close. The Hempfield article that says, the public and all Hempfield area school district employees should be very interested in the current financial problem. Okay. You don't need to, you have to live under a rock if you don't know that there are concerns out there about what's happening with school districts and how they are in fact declaring essentially bankruptcy and having state takeovers. But one of the things that I want to discuss is that several weeks ago, I was confronted face to face by a person who said to me, quote, "You screwed the teachers. You screwed the teachers," face to face. Well, let's set the record straight. I have been 100% excluded, totally, absolutely shut out of anything whatsoever to do with negotiations. If anyone screwed the teachers, you'll have to look at Miller, Bentz, Kaufman Roads, Molnar, Campbell, whoever. I want the public to know that I was personally face-to-face told you screwed the teachers. And I want to make it very clear that I had nothing to do with this contract and never saw it until 48 hours ago. I had nothing to do with it. If in fact as a result of this contract taxes go up, don't call me. I'm not the one who did it. I have defended all of the stakeholders in this school district, including taxpayers who have no direct voice on this board. I have done that consistently. My concern, and I spoke with Dr. Molnar about this a while ago, there is no long-range plan, no vision for this school district. We've lost 25% of our students in the last 25 years. When you look at the demographics of this school district, 5% of our children are under the age of 5. 18% of our residents are over the age of 65. There are predictions that by the year 2025, there won't even be a public school system as we know it today. It'll all be cyber. The median family household income in the school district is $35,900. That's family income, okay? At the national level, it's $51,425. 52% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. 1 out of every 7 families in this school district lives below the poverty level. Below the poverty level. When I got on the board, I thought I died and went to heaven. I believed everything I was told. We were rolling in money with these beautiful buildings, you know, everything was absolutely wonderful. About 6 or 8 months after I got on the board, I asked a question. I was sitting in a room with the administration, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, all the administration, all the board members who had been there, you know, for years and years and so forth, and I asked one question. How much do we owe on these buildings? Do you know what? Not one single person in the room knew the answer to that question. They said to me, we'll get the information and we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you. Well, they did. And that's when I found out that at that time we owed $51 million on our buildings. And while I thought that the $51 million figure was horrifying, what was more horrifying is that no one in that room knew that. They didn't even know it. But you know what the most horrifying thing of was it all? No one had ever asked that question until I did. I could not comprehend that. It was like someone just hit me in the gut with a fist. And that's when I started to look into some other things that were shocking to me. I never realized until the last meeting here, we have given out $4,112,507 in retirement bonuses in 5 years. We still owe over $2 million. We had a tax increase in 2005 of 9.4 mils, which generated $7 million in excess taxes during that period of time. When we talked about the fund balance, and the business manager said the fund balance is $8 million, and I said, no way is our fund balance $8 million. And I began to list all the bills we had and the commitments we had and the things we had to pay for. In the newspaper, I was publicly called nuts. It was in the paper. I was nuts. Mr. Salem said the exact same thing at a meeting in this room, and nobody called him nuts, because the truth is, there's no $8 million fund balance out there. We owe that money. I also discovered that we have 1 full-time employee for every 9 students. When I mentioned that to another board member, she looked at me and said, "And your point?" But the thing that hurts me the most about this contract is that when Sam Exipiter was on the board, he went to the custodians, the maintenance people, the clerical, the support staff, and he said, "Guys, times are tough. Please help us." And those people stepped up to the plate. They took a 2-year wage and pension freeze and voluntarily significantly increased their payment, their contribution to their health care costs. Our lowest paid workers made the greatest sacrifice. I did another thing. I took our total budget and divided it by the number of students. It comes out to $13,500 each. Funny, Ken? A student who enters kindergarten today and is in this school district for 13 years to graduate, adjusted for inflation, if nothing changes, it will cost almost $250,000 for one high school diploma. One high school diploma. $250,000. Maybe a little less, maybe like $230,000. And that's if you can guarantee that 13 years from now we'll still be spending the same amount of money, that our dollar will still be worth it. But it's priceless. I agree with you. The education we give our children is priceless. But I have a real worry, and this has come up before. The national average for college graduates is 27%. The Pennsylvania average is 26%. In the Southmoreland School District, 11% of our people are college graduates. What is happening to our kids? Where are they? People say I'm anti-education. Look at the first two letters on the nameplate. And it tells me I'm anti-education. I was accused of hating the district by Mr. Porter. I care more about this district than any of you will ever know. I'm not here for any personal gain, to get anything for my kids or anything else. I'm here because I genuinely care about this district. Because when many people, employees and all that are gone, I'm still going to be living here. I have family here. This district is important to me. I believe that we should look at the future. We should recognize what's coming down. We should be planning it. I believe that there should be a plan, and then you staff it, and then you do a contract. But probably the one thing that bothers me the most, and I need an answer to this question, what was the big emergency about this meeting tonight? This contract expired almost a year ago. You know we have a meeting next Thursday. I'm sitting here, I'm not complaining, I'm having a major reception at my home when I come over here because I have never missed a meeting. I don't want a pat on the back, I take it seriously. What was the emergency? So, because I have been methodically excluded from all negotiations, I want to explain my vote. And you'll understand why I vote the way I do tonight. The logical conclusion is that since I was excluded from the negotiations in every way, shape, and form, I should be excluded from the votes. When I asked for an update, the answer was, we'll let you know what happens when it's over. We don't like Catherine Fike, but that's okay. Please proceed with the vote. Thank you.
Let me just make one comment. Mr. Beistel, were you included on or updated on anything else that was going on with the contract?
No.
So it was the committee, the 4 people with the committee, the teachers' spouses were excluded from that because of legalities. So Mr. Beistel and Mr. Alt, were you included on any of these? So to Dr. Fike, to
How long have they been on the board, Josie? 3 months? I've been here 2.5 years.
Well, let's go back a minute. You were part of the negotiations way before, back when, and you took yourself off. So to sit there and say that nobody likes you, and to say you were never included in anything,
No, I didn't say I
that's
wasn't
false
included.
information.
I was excluded.
You were not excluded on any
Josie,
of
I
these
said,
details.
may I be updated on negotiations? And Levi Miller said, we're not going to tell you anything until it's over.
He didn't say it like that,
No,
Catherine.
he did not.
And let's go back to when I was not on any negotiations before, when Sam and Paul and you were on it. I didn't know a clue. And it was
wasn't on any of
explained to me.
I wasn't on any of it. I excused myself from everything. Custodial, maintenance, everything.
And you have no complaint.
The abuse that I
But
took.
no,
no
that's just
complaint.
the
The
way
abuse
the
I took
legality
specifically from
works.
Gail during that
Because
negotiation
the committee
session was
needs to
beyond
have
acceptable.
trust on both sides. They need to have trust and know that what's being discussed and negotiated doesn't go anywhere. Then that committee comes back and discusses it with you. So please do not lead the public to believe that you were excluded.
I was
because
excluded
Mr. Alt and
from the
Mr. Feistel were
negotiations.
not included in it either because of other
I
reasons.
specifically asked to be updated.
It's not the way things are done.
This is my very first time in negotiations, and I'm proud of the way things had gone between the both, and I respect the way back and forth in the rules that they have. It's just part of the game. Not the game, but part of the way they go back and forth.
Right the first time.
That's how they deal with it.
It's procedure.
Proceed to vote.
Excuse me, Fred, did anybody outside of your committee get informed along the way? Go ahead.
I just want to give a word of thanks here to when I joined the committee first of the year, and specifically to start with the board committee. Just a kind of thanks that we could work together, that there were various points of view, but that and I felt there was an authentic process. But I would extend that to the board. The kind of vote tonight reminds me of why I've been on this board for a good number of years, because I think I'm so proud, because I'm a member of the citizens who voted us, 9 of us. We were voted in by the citizens of this community to make the ultimate judgment about public education, policies, budget, big one tonight, and personnel. Those are the big 3. And those we approve or disapprove. And what tonight is one of those. We're either going to approve or we're going to disapprove that. I'm tremendously proud. And I don't know, democracy is not perfect by a long shot. And Dr. Fike, you have eloquently stated, as Mr. Kiefer, some of the dilemmas and some of the, but I don't know of any other system that does it better. And in fact, I wouldn't want to be in any other system that does it the way they do, whether it's autocratic or you can name the other various systems. But there's an element of democracy in it. And just say this on the board. I really appreciate, and I felt, did we perfectly? No. Represent where various of us were coming from and the positions we took? No, we did not, because we couldn't. But I totally appreciate the various points of view. Those are very strong fiscal conservatives. Those who would tend to be, for want of a better word, would have been more liberal in regards to funding, salaries, you name it. But I thought we did. All I can say is to the committee, to the rest of the board, we did the best we could in the circumstances. I want to say this to the teachers out there. I thought and I'm only speaking since December, we did it in good faith. You folks, when you presented positions, and both of us changed our positions from the beginning and what we inherited, but I always thought you dealt with us in good faith, and it was respectful, and you carry the freight here. And I am so proud of our teaching staff. I am so proud of what you've done for our neighbors, what you've done for, I could just name any number. You do a tremendous job, and I'm very grateful. I'm very, very grateful for the Education Association. So all I can say is I thought that everybody involved in this process did the best we can. Is it the way individuals of us would have liked it to be? No, it is not. But I can certainly approve of it, and I'm just very grateful for everybody who was involved in it. That's all I have to say.
Levi, let me tell you about a system that exists right down the road.
Okay.
I'm on the board at the IU with a school board member from Mount Pleasant. He told me after every single executive session there was a board meeting. The board was informed of everything, had input, they went back again, and it happened every single time for every meeting. And by the time that contract was voted on, it was absolutely unanimous because everybody had input. That was just down the road, Levi. That would not have been a difficult thing to do.
That would be would have been another way.
There weren't even that many meetings. It wouldn't have even been that difficult.
What I said, all I can say is, given our circumstances, given our personnel, I thought that the way we worked at it, because it was the most authentic way for us to do it on our board. That's all I had to say.
I have one more question. I have calculated what this increased contract is going to cost. Did we talk about that after the vote or before? I don't know what the confidentiality issues are here, so tell me what they are. No?
Yeah.
You can talk about it? Yeah. Okay. I sat and I took every step at every scale, multiplied by the number of teachers at each step, added it all up, did it for the year 11-12, 12-13, 13-14, 14-15. And the final figure I have is that what it will cost to implement this, I have it right here, this contract will be, just in raises, is $991,076. $209,000 the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year. Because each year, as step movement occurs, they keep going up and up and up and up. For example, if you go from 11 to 12 to 13 to 14, you get a $17,000 raises in 3 years. Okay? So you just take the total number of salaries, 11, 12, 12, 13, subtract each number. I didn't even take into account the pension increases and what's going to happen there, because that's looking really, really tough. And I do have something that I would ask the board to look at. It doesn't come from me. I would ask the board to look at this. This is from the state. This shows pension increases. That red ink on there is what we have to pay. And one of the things that I thought we would get in there would be figures that would show what that would cost us. Again, it's that long-range plan where we look at how many students are we going to have, how many teachers do we need, how are we going to pay off our buildings, what are our expenses going to be, what's going to happen to health care costs, what happens to pensions. How do we pay for that red ink? If you look at 2013 and 14 and 15, look at the red ink on there. We're talking, well, Mr. Salem, you did in fact give out a figure that was going to cost $2 million increases for pensions. Did that in one of your handouts, right?
Yes. Over the next several years.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is several years, yeah.
I will say that it is difficult to budget
It is.
without knowing what your future salary expenses will be.
I agree.
In that regard, having an agreement in place is, I think, the first priority to having a long-range plan. That's the single largest line item of the budget, and to have that figure missing from your projections, there's almost no sense in making projections. So.
I hear what you're saying. There's no sense in making predictions. This is why you need a plan. You need to look at students. You need to look at program staffing and so forth. These are facts. These are not just.
Well, we should be able to do something, a 4-year plan, now that we know.
I think after the budget's over in the books that I will be able to put together a long-range prediction of the district's finances.
And that is one of the things that we want to be working on throughout the next year. So I don't disagree with Doctor that we need a plan.
But as somebody said, school districts are the only people in the world who plan first and then go to find a budget. Everybody else, here's my budget, this is what I can do with it. And that's not what we're doing. We're saying, okay, let's spend it first and then we'll see what we can get. I just think there's a total lack of a direction. Again, what was the emergency? Can somebody tell me why this meeting was held tonight? The emergency. We're meeting next Thursday.
I'd like to know that too.
The meeting was held tonight because that is what the two negotiating teams agreed to in terms of a timeline.
Well, what was the emergency?
Didn't say there was an emergency. I said this is what the two committees agreed to.
As far as Bruce Campbell's recommendation, you guys know Bruce Campbell lives in Colorado, just so you know. I live here. I'm extremely distressed about the process. I think we have wonderful teachers, and don't you be surprised if you don't regret this. You may live to regret this contract. Things could really change. For the worse for you.
Bill, before the vote, can I just ask, do your numbers match the numbers from Dr. Fike? Just to make sure.
They're close, yes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah, Mike, I'll make a brief comment. I don't want to drag this out. It's very tough to sit up here. I think everybody agrees. They may not agree with me, but you're elected and you're elected to look out for the taxpayers' dollars and to provide a fair wage for the teachers. And you live in a small community. It's tough for everybody up here. I just want to say I thank Dr. Fike for the things that she throws out there, because I think in a lot of things she's very right, that we do have to open our eyes, because there's an ugly truth down the road. You know, what she just showed you in the newspaper today about a school that's closing down. Is it Menneson? You know, there's not going to be a school. You know, there's some ugly truths out there, and we do have to get costs under control. It's easy to say there's $8 million, whether there is or I don't even know.
There isn't.
But, you know, it's not like we're in better shape than the rest of the communities, because I don't think we are. And down the road, we're going to face some real tough reality here.
Again, Mr. Salem said repeatedly, you don't use your fund balance to pay your ongoing
Right,
expenses.
right, yeah.
I'm looking at using a fund balance
I
to
mean,
pay expenses.
even with this minimal raise, if we don't use the fund balance, then we have to have a
You have no
raise.
way to pay.
Is that not correct? If we don't use the fund balance for this contract, pay any part of it, we would have to have a raise?
Well, the budget's nowhere near completed yet,
Right.
Ken. So, let's not put the cart before the horse.
Okay. But no, I just want to say, it's not an easy thing to sit up here. The teachers can say one thing, we can say another thing, and it's not that cut and dried, but I do want to thank Dr. Fike for throwing out things that maybe a lot of you don't agree with, but there are facts in there, and there are ugly truths in there that sooner or later we may face. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Pass. Not abstain, pass.
Mrs. Kaufman,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes?
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mr. Ault,
Yes.
Mr. Benz.
Yes. Motion passes.
Dr. Fike, you doing a vote?
She passed.
I passed. My vote is passed. If you
Oh, I
read
thought that meant-
if you read the policy, it says there are 3 ways you can vote: yes, no, and pass. That's in our policy. I'm voting pass. I was passed over, so I'm passing.
Motion passes 801. Before we move on to the final citizens' comments, I just want to make some comments myself. I just want to thank the committee also for all the hard work and time that you put in at the meetings. I want to thank the teachers and their committee, and also agree with what was said up here, that we have great teachers and are doing a great job, and just hope we can keep everything moving in the positive direction. And just want to thank Bruce Campbell and Matt Edgell to get this all completed and finished. And just...
May I say something, Mike? Are we going to reopen the contracts, or are we going to give refunds to the custodians for all the health care they've paid for? Because they have a Me Too clause in there, remember? that if the teachers get a better deal, we have to give all the money back that they've paid for their health care and put them back at a lower level.
The contract is honored. If the Me Too is in there, then it's honored. It's not
Well,
opened back up, it's just honored.
I think we should think long and hard about reopening.
Any citizens' comments? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Meeting's adjourned.